Ja, die erste Frage, die ich David jetzt stelle, ist, wie sieht es eigentlich aus mit dem Businessmodell? David, Frontier Development clarified very early that Elite Dangerous will get charged add-ons. What exactly is the business plan? What type of add-ons are there when the game is released?
Well, obviously when the game's first released, we'll have a great game to play, but we plan to keep bringing new features over time. So features like the ability to walk around your spaceship, the ability to board other spaceships, the ability to land initially on airless worlds and then on ever richer places will be added. And ultimately walking around planets on the surface. I love the idea of sort of big game hunting or discovering new life forms on different distant places, like in the system we showed earlier on 17 Draconis, which is a long way out from the sun. And so I think we haven't detailed which will be in what, because we've got to look at those, how we'll do it, but those would be paid updates is the plan. Although for people who have joined the premium beta, of course, they won't have to pay because they've already got a pass to cover those.
Also es wird dann halt jede Menge neuen Content geben, verschiedenster Art. Und Leute, die jetzt in der Premium-Beta sind, die müssen dafür nichts bezahlen. Alle anderen werden dann entsprechend zur Kasse gebeten. Als nächstes möchte ich Dave fragen, wie das denn aussieht mit Indie-Spielen, die eigentlich immer dieses Problem haben, mit dem repetitiven Content und dann langweilig werden. Many indie games have the problem because of repetitive content and then to get the long-term motivation right. Often there is no plotline involved. And how do you plan to sustain the long-term motivation of the players?
There are a lot of different ways to sustain the motivation, in the sense that, firstly, it's a fully multiplayer world, so a lot of player-driven things happen. Also, we will be continually ejecting changes into the world, like whether it's a famine, whether it's a gold rush, or all of these sort of things, which will help add to the story. But the story we're telling is actually your story and your progression. There is also a great story of the galaxy evolving, but that's almost like a backdrop. What you can't have in a multiplayer game is these single-player stories where everyone saves the world, because it just doesn't work. But what you can have is a story where you're invited to join a secret organisation and you go off and on adventures, all that sort of thing. So we do have that in the game, and that will aid the long-term motivation for people. It will take a while to get the really big ships, but for me, one of the things I'm excited about is just going out exploring. Because we've said we've got 400 billion stars, which we have, but actually human space is only going to be around 100,000 systems. It's tiny compared to the galaxy. And there will be people, hopefully, like me, wanting to set out into the unknown, where most of the players will be concentrated in that space, because that's where all the space stations are, that's where all the action is. But you could tool up your really big ship, maybe an Anaconda, and just head out into the unknown with lots of spares, lots of all sorts of things that you need, and skim fuel from the suns, but probably cooperate with your friends, to come and help and work it out. The other thing I like is the idea of meeting another player a long way out is going to be a rare event and quite fun. We've seen a lot of really positive behaviour already in the alpha and now in the premium beta. And I just think I love those things where players cooperate and engage with each other. You're not necessarily just out to kill each other, although that might happen.
Also sagt im Grunde, der Entdeckerdrang ist eigentlich das, was motiviert, denn es gibt ein riesiges Weltall zu entdecken mit Milliarden Sternen und natürlich auch die Multiplayer-Komponente, dass man halt sehr, sehr viele andere Spieler trifft und mit denen halt Sachen machen kann. Im Grunde hat also jeder Spieler sozusagen seine eigene Story und soll dadurch motiviert bleiben. Okay, jetzt habe ich noch ein paar Hardware-Questions, a couple of Hardware-Questions. You're building this on your own engine called Cobra. So what technical specials a player can expect, and why did you choose to make your own engine?
We've had our own engine for a very, very long time. So it's made lots of great games, whether it's sort of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which is still doing well for us, Disneyland Adventures, Zoo Tycoon, very, very wide range of very different games, Lost Winds, across lots of different platforms. And it's very stable, very powerful, fully 64-bit. I don't think there is another engine that's up to doing for what we're doing. I mean, just the size of the galaxy and even the size of each solar system, where there's a big fraction of a light year across, is huge draw distances. You need fully 64-bit numbers for that. You need 64-bit draw distances to make that work. And so I don't think there is another option. But actually, as it happens, our engine is very well set up, very well optimized. In terms of things that we've added. With Alpha 1, a lot of people saying, oh, we want support for Oculus Rift, for example. Yeah. So we did it as a Christmas present on the 20th of December, a week or so, 2 weeks after we first released the alpha, and people were delighted. I was delighted to play it, because the beauty is we're making a game for ourselves. For me, for everyone, people who've joined the campaign already, because we're all sort of like-minded. And would I like to play the game on something like Oculus Rift? Of course I would. And so would a lot of the other people. Nearly 10% of our alpha backers played on Oculus Rift. It's amazing. So we added that, but because it was our own engine, it was very easy for us to add. You added support for 3D TVs. It's lovely if you've seen it on a 3D TV. It's great.
It's much easier to
yeah.
those features.
And it's because we've got our own engine, we're in control of that. So looking at features now, everything from sort of 4K support to things like that although it's not really there now because the TVs are very expensive, we've been very good in the past at future-proofing our games. So a game like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which came out in 2004, still got top of the charts, #1 in the budget charts last year. And that for a game, that's a very, very long time, 10 years.
It is.
And so I hope in 10 years' time, people are going, wow, I'm getting a new PC because I want this extra feature to look that much better, in terms of resolution, in terms of what the game can offer, in terms of add-ons. The other reason we're supporting a whole range of, to be honest, very expensive joysticks. We don't expect you to have them, but it's great when you play with them.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, we've even support ones with the foot pedals and everything that some people have. So it's the spirit of being gamers. We are making games for ourselves and for other gamers. And some people will have amazing rigs to play them on, but what we want to also make sure that it works fine on the lower specs. So you can play it on a mouse and keyboard, you can play it on a controller, but obviously the huge TV, the fancy controls, Oculus Rift are going to be better.
Also im Grunde geht es eigentlich darum, dass David die volle Kontrolle behalten will und die Cobra Engine, die leistet halt im Grunde alles, was die Entwickler für das Spiel eigentlich brauchen, sei es von irgendwelchen Joysticks, die supported werden oder auch 4K-Auflösung, das ist halt alles drin und es macht es halt einfach einfacher, denn sie machen diese Spiele quasi für sich selbst und wollen deswegen auch Kontrolle über die Engine behalten. Okay, David, last question. You started developing games a long time ago. So what was the fascination of the games like Elite back then? I mean, when you see the graphics today, you say, oh my God, how did I have fun with that? So what was the fascination?
Well, I think we had great fun. It's funny, when I started Elite with Ian back in 1982, bizarrely, the games had been around already for a few years, but mostly in the arcades. And the home computers were just starting. Things like the BBC Micro was out there, and the Acorn Atom that I had, which was its immediate predecessor. But the games were all blatant rip-offs of arcade games. But even then, they were all very, very similar in the sense they had an extra life at 10,000. They had smart bomb every 5,000. It was very, very regimented, and I found it was becoming tired and unimaginative. And back then, I liked the idea of a game where you had the freedom to do what you like. I liked the idea, for example, in games like Space Invader. I thought, I don't want an extra life. I'd rather have 2 smart bombs. Okay. Because you get every 5,000. It's that sort of thing. I thought, well, maybe you should be able to choose. Yeah. So the score being money was an interesting one. And I thought, why would you have an extra life at all? That felt very wrong, because you just casually throw it away. And I remember playing Galaxian, which is another game. I thought, surely, if that many spaceships are attacking me, I'd just run away, and go and hide behind something and take them out one at a time. I just thought most of the fun of this has gone, because I'm just fighting in the open. All I can do is go left and right, and it's only because they're behaving in such a rubbish fashion, they're completely predictable, like the one that goes like that you can get them. I'm not saying the game isn't great, but I found I'd sort of played those games, so a lot of the variants of them that came out didn't really add much, that I thought anyway. And so I thought a game where you actually sat down and properly played for a long time and saved your position and all that sort of thing would be completely different. So, I mean, with Elite, I saw it as an open world game, not necessarily a space game. I mean, obviously it was set in space, but ironically at the time the problem was rendering was very, very difficult. We couldn't render a world other than in space, where the great thing is, I mean, the clue's in the name. There's mostly nothing. And so, you know, drawing a few dots is quite possible back then, and drawing 3D objects. I'd already put together a lot of 3D code even before I met Ian, and it was a good way of sort of expressing a world you could explore. And that's essentially the spirit behind where Elite came from.
I remember that. I was 6 years old, and I played Elite for the first time, and it was completely different from everything that was out there at that time.
Interestingly, that actually caused a problem for us.
Yeah.
Because the publishers didn't want it, because it was too different.
Okay, also David sagt im Grunde, viel hat er gesagt. Er sagte, dass damals die Faszination an Elite eigentlich war, dass es komplett anders war als alles, was damals raus war. Es gab ja damals diese ganz vielen Arcade-Spiele wie Space Invaders. Da gab es halt wenig Freiheit. Man konnte halt von links nach rechts gehen, man konnte irgendwas schießen, und das wollte David halt verändern und hat deswegen Elite gemacht, wo es halt auch viel mehr spielerische Möglichkeiten gab, und das war damals die Faszination an dem Spiel. Okay, David, thank you very much for the interview, and well,
thank you.
See you next time.
Nice
Bye bye.
Talking to you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.